Hi, my name is Shane, and I'm a bit surprised. I came here expecting to be in a little room and not on a big stage. So this is a bit of a shock for me, too. Did the guys say that they wanted to get the people to sit more together in the center rather than at the sides? That'd be really good. You're all quite spread out. Okay, so I'm here to talk to you a bit about big data, big profits. Very catchy title. Fooled you all. We're not going to talk about money at all. We're going to talk about data. I wanted to maybe start off by bringing in a few caveats about me and you and what's going to happen here. So I'm called an expert because that's what my internal title is, but I don't particularly like that title. But that's what I'm called. That does not make me a god, and therefore there are plenty of things I don't know. So feel free, or at least forgive me if you ask me a question to which I do not have the answer. I'm not actually omnipotent. But I will try to answer questions if I can. I have brought with me this very old-fashioned tool called a pen and paper. And if you ask me a question that I don't have an answer for, I will take note of it, and I will ask you your name and the company you're from, and I will get you an answer and give it to your account manager and get them to come back to you. So, you can ask me questions. It's just I won't guarantee I'll be able to answer them. I'm an analyst, probably like some of you. I'll ask you about that in a moment. And that means that I look at data and try to interpret that data and understand how to use it, and then recommend to people how they could maybe do things to improve their website experiences and their advertising experiences and that. I am not a developer. Code is a terrifying concept for me, too. So if anyone in there was really hoping to ask me a few questions about their custom variables or their snippets of code and things like that, I will not have those answers. But again, if you really, really have a burning need to ask about something like that, feel free to come to me afterwards and we can see if I can find someone who can help you with that. Does that sound okay? Yeah? If I'd known I was going to be on stage, I wouldn't have worn brown and green runners. But I hope you'll forgive me my dressing down in this. It's very googly. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about with you guys is I've broken it out into the whole thing is like how or why is what was in the description, why you should embrace data and stuff like that. I think we all know we should embrace data. Does anyone here not believe they should embrace data? Well, you can't say it now, but you should embrace data. It's worth more to you to embrace data than not. I'm going to try and actually focus a bit more on hows than whys and some of the things that you can do rather than just that you should do it, whatever, or just saying why you should do it. What kind of makeup do we have in the audience? How many people here are like analysts? Wow, small, almost nobody. Good, there go the tricky questions. How many people here are like, data monkeys, geeks, really into their data and their code and all that kind of stuff? Hi there. How many people here are marketing people? Whoa. Okay, I'll dumb this down a bit. Okay. So I'm going to go through some things that I think could be, that I feel are relevant. When I go and look at people's data all the time, the things that kind of strike me when I'm trying to help them to understand their data, that I find it very hard to help them if they haven't followed certain types of things. I'm going to go through those with you about why you should try maybe doing these within your own companies with your own data to help you to get more from the data, but also to help you guys, particularly in marketing, to be able to understand that data a bit more easily yourself without having to turn all the time to a developer or an analyst to understand things. I'm going to talk about tracking and valuing what we track. I'll talk about segmentation, divide and deduce. I tried to come up with all these fancy little titles so that you might remember them. And a little tiny bit about attribution and testing and then targeting and converting, because of course that's what we really want people to do. But rather than the standard Google approach of I've built a presentation, which we call decks, I've built a deck and I'm going to project it at you for the next 40 minutes or so and then see if anyone's got any questions. I'd like to start by actually asking if anyone has any burning questions they'd like me to address now before we go on in further. I believe you have to go to the mics. You want to ask some questions? Sorry for anyone who chose to sit in the center of it. I'll bet you feel like an idiot now. But if anyone has any burning questions, something that they would particularly like me to address now, I can, in case we don't have time at the end. Nobody. What an incredible audience. Okay, so you've all just had lunch, you are digesting, you're tired. What a great time to talk about data. Huh? Who gave me this slot? Can I get, by the way, just the guys of the organizers, can I get a bottle of water or a glass of water or something? I'm starting to dry up. It's a really dull topic. Okay, so we're going to start off, let's talk a little, let's use the deck then that I built. And we'll start off by talking about check and simplify. So when I'm saying check, I think you should make sure that you check your tags that you have on your site. And actually make sure that they are firing and that they work. It is shocking that there are actually companies out there who don't check to make sure their tags work and who are not gathering data as a result. I would particularly suggest this to you for anyone who's built mobile properties that are maybe separate, that are not maybe responsive, that are separate from your desktop properties. Just make sure that you are still tracking everything on mobile as well. I kid you not, I have met very large companies who, when I say, okay, let's talk about mobile, they go, we can't really talk about mobile because we don't know what's going on. And that's a really, really bad thing. In fact, Guinness, I think about 2 or 3 years ago, I went to this event, and the guys at Guinness here in Ireland, and they had built this big app, and they were so proud of it, and they were up for an hour and talked about this incredible app and all the amazing things people had been able to do around the Six Nations rugby and stuff when using it. And at the end, we all started asking them questions like, so how many people actually, did this and did that? And we don't know. We didn't actually have any tracking on the thing. We have a clue what it actually did. But it was brilliant, so we're going to do it again next year. And isn't that great when you've got branding budgets? But the important thing is that you're tracking everything yourself. So Tag Assistant, just, by the way, I understand that not all of you probably use Google Analytics. In fact, how many of you do use Google Analytics? You should, almost all of you. Good. That'll be relevant to all of you. Do anyone use other packages? Omniture, Core Metrics, this kind of thing. Yeah, I will try as much as possible to talk about things that are not specific to Google Analytics, but there will be times when I will talk about things that are specific to Google Analytics simply because it's so great. But also because, obviously, I can't advise you on other people's packages in the same way that I can our own package because, well, it's ours, so we can talk about it. So Tag Assistant is for your Google tags. This is for anyone who's got Google tags. Very simple thing. You can get this from the Chrome Web Store. And I think also you can get it from Firefox extension too. And it just allows you to, as you go onto your site, it will just check to make sure that all of your tags are set up correctly. And it'll be up there. It's a little, that tiny little blue thing up there, that's it. It'll record the number of different Google codes that it finds on the page. And if you drop it down, it'll be, if it's blue, then everything's fine. Orange and red are the other colors where it starts to get towards danger. And when you touch on them, it'll tell you why it's reporting an orange or a red and give you suggestions for how you can fix those tags. So check your tags and make sure that they are actually all working and firing. Another thing I would say is you should try, where possible, to use a tag management system. How many people here are using a tag management tool? Such a small number. It could be so much larger. And it should be so much larger. Because if you're using a tag management tool, you get much greater marketing agility. Whenever you want to do something that requires a tagging thing, you can do it so quickly because you don't need to go to a developer and ask them to put a code onto the site. Tag management tools essentially are container tags, where you literally put the container tag onto the site, and once you put it on, then you can just use an interface to manage adding on tags and removing tags and all the rest. And it's much more efficient than having to wait for developer time to go in and add these tags on for you. So I would recommend that you have this. It's marketing agility. It's also generally much more dependable data because tag management systems will check the tags they're putting on to make sure that they actually do what you thought they were supposed to do, or make sure that it's going to fire. It'll let you know when you're creating it whether it's going to fire. Even they should let you know whether or not the tags you're now adding are going to interfere with other tags that are already there. So it's a really efficient way of getting much better data as well by having a tag management system. And of course, it's quick and easy. Once you get the tag management container tag on there, it's quick and easy. For those of you who don't have one and who are thinking about it, that's cool. And it's also free. So for those who are, because it's a big thing, we want to put the cost of this, it's free. I mean, there are other tag management tools out there. I don't for a second want you to think that this guy's from Google is coming in to sell us stuff. I I am. But it's not, it's not the main reason. So there's Tagman and there's Qubits One Tag and Omniture have got their own solutions on that. So there are plenty of them out there. But I would recommend, particularly as marketers, that you encourage your companies to invest in this to give you as marketers a bit more control over actually putting tags on the site and editing and being able to move really quickly when you need to. Okay, so use an intuitive URL structure. This, for me, is something I encounter a lot when I go into people's analytics accounts, is that their URL structures of their sites are not intuitive. So it's not really obvious to a layperson or a marketing person to how people have been moving around the site when they look at analytics, because there's no really clear, obvious structure to the URLs. And it just makes it much harder for you to mine that data. So if you've got like a clear one, like this one, where I've got, for example, the find a store. We've got find a store, /start, /town name, /choose store, store details, whatever. The benefits of doing this is that it clearly defines what each of the steps were. So if you go into an analytics package and you want to actually see where people have been going, you can clearly see the steps that people could follow. You can also then create a funnel for measuring that. What I find difficult is when I see they've got to find a store and maybe there's like a couple of letters and numbers and randoms behind it, and it's harder then for a person who doesn't work in the analytics department that set that up to interpret what that actually is, unless they go out and drop all these URLs in and check themselves for everything. And that gets pretty tiresome after a very short time. And you can also measure the funnel of where things are going. And you can get the true goal completion rate. And what I mean by that is a lot of people will go in and they will check, say, for all the users who went to the find a store section. And then that's it. They're just looking at that. And then, of course, what they actually are getting is all the people who went through all of the stages. So maybe they're going to get 4 times as many people visits seeming to have gone through these different pages. Or there's the risk that a lot of them will have gone only as far as the start and never gotten to the finish. And you're marking them as potential micro-conversions. So this way, it just helps you to track these things properly. Or if you've got a system wherein you've built it in a frame or a widget or a flash or whatever, then use an event to mark when a person could have gotten to the last stage. Event tracking. I'm not going to go into detail on that. Go back to the developer people. They'll know what you're talking about. The other thing is here. So you see here, category, search results, product. Again, for mining purposes, when you want to go in later and actually mine what people have done and where they've gone and what patterns are coming out on the site. I mean, there's all these different reports that are available for flow and all the rest. But if you want to do general mining or even general setting up goals for people reaching certain stages of your site, it's easier for you if your URL structure includes things like, this is a category page, so we're going to write the word category in here. Or some people write cat. Can make it a bit harder later on if you sell out to do with cats. It can also make it harder if you sell things with the word catch in them like that, because when you start to do your regex, I'll mention that now. It reduces your regex complexity. Does everyone know what I mean by regex? Does anyone know what I mean by regex? Okay. Damn it, Shane, dumb it down. Regex, in analytics terms, is a regular expression. This is what it's called, regular expression. And what it does is, when you go in to mine your data, it allows you to use certain symbols, recognize all that, to say, I'm only interested in the pages where the URL started with this or ended with that group, or only the ones that were .asbx's and not the HTMLs, whatever. You can use this language to actually really refine and create great segments in that. It's obviously a lot easier if the guy who wrote the URLs did it in plain English or whatever your language is. And so you can go in, I only want all the pages that are category pages, or I only want all the pages that are product pages. Some people use just a letter. I think John Lewis uses the letter P. God, that's going to be really easy to find later. But that kind of thing can happen. So just try and make it as easy as possible for yourselves in terms of that. It's also easy for everyone to understand, i.e. all of us. Anyone can go in. So if somebody then asks a third party to go in and analyze their data, they understand, even though they don't work for that company, they understand what pages are, and it's easier for them to mine it for you. And your segments will be much simpler to do, which I'm going to get back to in a while. Any questions about any of that at this point? Any regrets about coming here? No? I'm sure there are. I'm going to try not to be very complicated. But I really, really would encourage you to ask questions, because I will not answer your emails. So please do ask questions. Now's your chance. You know, yes, we got one. Yes, hi. Get my pen ready. Yeah. Yeah, I'm encouraging you. I'm not telling you. I'm encouraging you. You don't necessarily have to go out and do this, but it's more if you want to make it as simple as possible for your own companies to understand where things are. Yeah, it is a big thing to do, absolutely, and you need to work out whether or not it's worth it for you to do. But if you want to have a situation wherein marketers can easily go in and understand things, it's easier if things are written in plain English. Or you can start to, maybe when you develop new pages, start to use a different system to try to help and make it easier. It's up to you. I met a company in Norway, I think it was, about a year ago, and basically they came out, we went through their data. It was really, really hard to, and we realized that all of the insights were essentially, what's the word, crap. And that it was really, really hard to give proper insights on how to fix things, and they realized that really their first target had to be to just rebuild their URL structure, and then retag all of their analytics so that they could make sure they were getting good data, because bad data is worse than no data. You're actually going to act on the wrong things. But yeah, absolutely, you're absolutely true. I'm not saying go out there, all of you go home and rebuild your URL structures, but it would be a hell of a lot easier for yourselves and for analysts to understand things if your URL structure made sense. Does that help? Yeah. Thank you for your question. I wish I had a prize for you, a bronze star, something, but I've nothing. You can have this pen at the end. Okay. Cover the basics. There's just some simple basic things that you should also cover off. Everyone should cover off, no matter who they are. Have a master profile. In Google Analytics, this is now called views. Have a master profile or view. So if you've got profiles tracking your mobile, and you've got a profile tracking your tablets, and you've got a profile tracking your desktop, and then tracking people who come from certain places, whatever, have a master one that collects all of the data in a raw place. Again, it just allows you to check everything against one another at a later date, particularly if you want to compare mobile versus desktop traffic or things like that. It's a lot easier if you've got a master profile. It's also just good practice to have a place where all of the raw data goes, and then other places for specialist segments coming through. Okay, exclude your own traffic. This is really, really important, and it's shocking, again, how few people do this. Make sure that you have actually excluded your own traffic, that you're not reporting behaviors within your analytics that involve people within your own company going onto your site and playing around with it. They who already have a much better understanding of the site, have a much better relationship with that site, know what everything means. So it will completely skew your readings. You're going, my God, everybody seems to really know how to use search. But no, it's your own salespeople. So make sure you're excluding those IPs. I saw a retailer in the UK about 2-3 years ago, and I sat with their team and I said, guys, you don't deliver to Belfast, but you're doing an awful lot of sales in Belfast. What gives? And they go, I don't know. And it was just crazy. And it was only after, I think, the CEO came in, and he just looked at it and went, oh yeah, our sales teams for phone support are in Belfast. So their phone teams were going on the phone to clients, opening the website while they were there, and then doing everything like a client would do it, and then going ahead and purchase. Like, you've got amazing sales in Belfast, because the salespeople on phone support were actually doing all the purchases. And so, of course, this was completely skewing the data. So you want to make sure that you're excluding your own traffic. And you can do that for profiles if you don't want to have it out of your raw. You don't even need to have it in your raw profile, though. You can create a profile for your own traffic if you want, where you say, only include this IP. I'm curious to know what my staff are doing. But you could do that too. Oh, the fun we have with analytics. And turn on auto-tagging for AdWords, which you can do from within your AdWords account or analytics, just to make sure that you are actually tracking all of the stuff coming in from your AdWords advertising, and that it's being attributed to the right campaigns and ad groups and all the rest. It'll make it a hell of a lot easier for you to understand how to get more from your advertising and analytics if you're doing that. And the same for any other tracking you're doing. Make sure everything you're doing has been tracked. And not just tracked as in we've got a code on it because we put the analytics code on the site, but actually tracking it in terms of we've tracked this particular thing as coming from email, so it's got like a variable identifying it as email and that. Again, much easier for you to mine your data later. Okay, that's some of the more complicated stuff, I hope, out of the way. Any other questions about any of that? No? Okay. Right, track and value. This is more for you guys. As in more for marketing people. Love this. Okay, track all conversions. Most retailers I go to see track this. All right? And when I ask them, what are you tracking? They go, sales. Yeah. And what are you interested in? Sales. And do you ever ask anyone to do anything else? No. And of course, it's a big fat lie. Or no, it's not. It's not a big fat lie because they don't even realize they're asking people to do it. They honestly think that it's all just about sales. Here are some of the things. Can anyone think of other things that maybe you track in your sites, apart from sales? Store locator. Very impressive. Sign-ups. Yeah. Anything else? Huh? I can't hear you. I'm sorry. Visitors. No. I mean, you are. Your analytics program is doing that. I'm very sorry. That sounded really belittling. I am so sorry about that. But no. Anything else? I mean, goals-wise. I mean, goals, things that you would want to track. Add to baskets. Yeah, there's some really impressive answers coming back. Phone calls. Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's harder to do, but yeah. Leads, yeah, there's loads of things, obviously. And the really unfortunate and sad thing is that most of you aren't doing any of the things you're shouting out. But this is what you're all generally tracking. Sales, the final frontier, the bit at the end when the person actually gives you money. That's what you tend to track. And of course, that's where the money is. That's what you track. Here's some of the more common other things that I tend to come across people tracking. So they're tracking people who create accounts or register, even if they don't necessarily maybe go on to purchase. Sign-ups for newsletters, very popular, that one. Playing videos. And adding things to wish lists. Obviously, I'm trying to focus on retail-oriented things here. There are, of course, lots of other things, as you mentioned. Here's some of the things, other things that you could be doing that people tend not to do so much, except for that man over there. Find a store, so try use of store locator, sharing products, downloading brochures, downloading vouchers, reaching a point in a video. Imagine that. Adding to basket. Why do people not track adding to basket? They track adding to wish list, but very few people you come across track adding to basket. Even though an adding to basket is a much stronger sign of someone going to do something than an adding to wish list, because it's suggesting that they really want this now, which is kind of like, I'd like to have it. These are all of these things are things that really, if you're asking people to do these things, then, or if you're offering people the opportunity to do these things, then you should really be tracking whether or not people do these things. Because you may have a load of stuff on your site that you ask people to do that they don't do, in which case, why is it there? Or maybe it's stuff you really would like them to do, and you just don't realize they're not doing it. And so make sure you're tracking it so you know. And then you can go, do you know what, nobody's signing up for the newsletter. We know the newsletter is amazing. We need to make the newsletter more prominent. Get people to sign up for the newsletter. And all these different things. So make sure that you are tracking these things. You don't necessarily have to track playing a video and reaching a point in a video. I would recommend reaching a point in a video over playing a video, because just because a person presses play on a video does not mean that they actually watched it. Whereas if there's a point in the video where you feel the user will have gotten the message you were trying to get across, then you may want to track how many people reach the point where they must have gotten that message. Or else they've just pressed play and possibly immediately pressed stop or pause, whatever. So I would recommend that you track, and you could do that with event tracking. Just write it down, take it back to your developers, they'll know what you're talking about. So where people go, and because people, by the way, don't watch videos the whole way through a lot of the time, if there is a message that you're trying to get across, don't leave it to the very end. It's not like television advertising where you can have this fantastic load of babies playing around with bottles and then at the end go, Evian. You know, on the internet it's better if you kind of go, Evian, now look at the babies. Because then they'll get quickly, if they decide to opt out, at least they'll still have known what it was that they were watching the babies for. So sales, play videos to a particular point, add to basket, really, really importantly track. And the reason you're tracking all this is because very often, if you're only focused on the sale, if you're only focused on that final conclusive sale, then what happens is people click on your ads, they come into your site, they actually do something that you have given them an opportunity to do, and then they leave, and it may lead to them doing something later on, but you haven't tracked that. And what do? You go, well, that keyword's crap, I'm turning that off. Or I'm turning down the bids on that, or it doesn't do anything. Whereas if you actually have tracked all of these things, you will know when people do things on your site. Even if they don't go on to do the ultimate goal of buying something, at least you will know the other things that they are doing that you know may add value later on. Does that make sense? Do you think you'll do it? Not a chance in hell. No, I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. You'll all be great. We're going to check up on you on that, by the way. Make sure you do. So do, as much as possible. Ideally, don't have lots and lots and lots and lots of things that you ask people to do. ideally give people very clear instructions for what you want them to do so you can drive on those conversions. But you know that there are certain things that people will do where they don't want to, or you've seen everyone else doing it, so you thought you better put it in too. Things like giving people sharing options or whatever. Well, why have them there if you're not going to track whether or not people are using them? And then maybe if you find people aren't using them, you can take them away and putting something useful there instead. Or as I say, if they're not using something that you want them to use, then make sure you know that they're not using it so that you know to make it more prominent. Okay, now, it's a great thing to be tracking all these conversions. But it's even better if you have a value for them. As in, if you know what is the value of all the things that we're asking people to do. If there's no value to it, it shouldn't be there. So what do? You calculate some values. I'm going to give you a very basic, simple way of calculating a value. Let's take the store locator example, because you should all be tracking store locators if you have a store. How many people here have a store? Excuse me, about half of you, 40%. Enough to talk about it. So if you have a store, you should really be tracking whether people are using store locators. This is obviously increasingly important as people are on mobile devices, and they may actually be very close to your store, and a good likelihood that they'll go on in and that. So, understanding the true full value of all the visits that come in means understanding what they're using and tracking them and putting values on them. Here's a simple, very simplistic, easy way, but if you're kind of lost and worrying, how should we create values? So here's the thing. Imagine 100,000 people visit your site in 30 days. Oh, geez, we've lost one. Imagine 100,000 people visit your site in 30 days. It's a nice round number because the maths are easier for me that way. Click. Imagine 10% of those use your store locator. That's 10,000. Imagine just 4% of those visit your store. I actually was talking to somebody earlier today who was telling me that from a mobile perspective, apparently the stats that are coming out from third parties and that are there's more 10 to 15% of people on mobile who use a store locator go on and actually visit a store. But we're going to be really generous and say just 4. Imagine just 4%. So just 400 out of those 100,000 people have visited your store. Now, the average store visitor value, which anyone who's got a store should have some kind of a calculation on. If you don't go to your finance teams, they will have something on that. The average store visitor value is, say, €250. The total added value, therefore, from those 400 is €100,000. That's like €1 per visit. How easy. The value of the store locator is therefore €10 per conversion. And that's simply the total value divided by the users of the store locator. €10 per conversion. Very simple, easy mathematics, almost naive. But it gives you a nice number that you can say, okay, that's how much the value we're going to put on a person going into the store locator and actually going all the way to the end of it. It's worth about €10 to us. So that's the value we're going to put. And we're going to put the value on it. So you go into your goals. This is in Google Analytics, whatever package you're using. You go in and you actually add a value for your goals, for each of your goals. It says optional. It's not. So, calculate the goals, calculate the values, add those values. You don't report back to your teams these values. These are for you. These are for you guys when you're ascertaining what things you should have on the site, what's the true value of things, what people do relative to each other in terms of conversions. You don't go back and say, oh, wow, we added like £100 million worth of additional stuff this quarter, and everyone in finance looks at you and goes, I don't think so, idiot. So don't go back reporting these things as though you've done 5 times as many sales as you actually have. But you can use them then, once you've got those values for your conversions that you're tracking, that helps you to identify what are the things that really are valuable for you, that you really do want people to do. What are the things that really do add value to the site, and how do we promote those things and push those up and make them more prominent? And why do we keep telling people to go over and like us or whatever it is, or Google Plus us? Why do we keep telling people to Google Plus us when it's not really adding that much value to the site? It will add a lot of value to the site. But imagine, just for imagining's sake, imagine it wasn't. Why are we putting that in there? Maybe we should reduce that or move it further down the page or take it out altogether. We're adding decisions that we don't necessarily need to add. Does that make sense? Does anyone have any questions about that? Yes! The same man again. Do you really think it's worth doing? Yes. Oh, I think they wanted you to go to the mic. Conversions? Yes.
Importing this information into AdWords, the goals. So we do e-commerce, obviously, and we track that in AdWords, so we know exactly the revenue associated. If we are setting up like a dozen different goals on analytics, do we import that into AdWords as well? Because in analytics, it's all broken out. It's all different columns. In AdWords, there's just the one conversion column, so it's...
Yeah, but you can segment that column. So there's a little button at the top of the AdWords interface area that says segment, and it's got a little drop-down arrow on it. And when you press it, you can segment conversions and pop across. And when you segment conversions, you can actually segment by type of conversion. And it will then tell you the names of all the conversions and which ones you actually got conversions for. So you can do that. That's kind of cool, isn't it? Don't worry about it. Do you know what? I met someone in our AdWords team this morning who didn't know that, so don't worry about it. There's loads of people don't realize the power and amazingness of Google AdWords. So, yeah, you can do that. That's a great way of doing it. One thing I would say to you, though, if you are going to start importing a lot of these goals into your AdWords is, or even creating lots of goals in AdWords, is, are many of you using Conversion Optimizer? Yeah, it's brilliant. But the thing about it is that it doesn't distinguish between goals of different values. So if you're using Conversion Optimizer, it's probably better off for now, until we make it better, to only have one goal conversion that you really wanted to do, because it will treat all potential conversions equally. So if the conversion thing you really wanted was sales, and you've added in things like, people sharing is worth 20p to us, and we'll throw that in there as well. It will drive as many people to try and do that as anything else. So just from a conversion optimizer, it is brilliant. It really is. But it's not as brilliant as it will be, as it could be. And so on that one, I would just say beware on that particular one. But if you're not using it, go on, bring them all in. Great fun. And you can use the segments to drop down and see actually what were all the different conversions that happened. Or you can also export reports and get it from that. Is that brilliant? Okay. All right, so we're adding values. We know what all the things are. We're not reporting it back to our finance team as additional sales, but we are adding values so that we understand the relative worth of all the different things we ask people to do. And of course, we're not adding lots and lots of things to ask people to do anyway, because we know what we really want people to do, and so we don't want to be distracting them away from that. And we're not just, also please don't start putting things on your site just because everyone else does it. Test it if you're going to introduce it, because everyone else doesn't necessarily do it for the right reasons. I met 4, just say travel companies, 2 years ago, and every one of them told me they were copying one of the others, and nobody was checking to see if it was working. So basically you had this round robin of 4 companies copying each other and going, oh, look what they've done, right, we'll do that too. And no one knew if any of it worked. None of them knew if any of it worked. So do test if you're putting things on. Test that it's adding value to your users and it's adding value to you. And you'll know if you've got values associated with those things. Okay, so that's the tracking thing. I forgot to put my red box in there. Divide and deduce. So probably the most powerful element of using analytics packages in that is around segmentation. Not all users are the same. All animals are not equal. And everyone behaves in different ways. People come to your site for different reasons. They come at different times. They do different things. Some of them will fast come along and purchase something from you. Others may take a long time to make purchases. People will purchase their first time coming. Others will purchase when they return, or maybe multiple visits. There are many different ways that people behave. If you treat them all as exactly the same, then you will end up not really targeting lots of people properly. There'll be one group that you'll probably catch because they're in that kind of generic group, but the rest are not. So it's really, really important that we divide our customers up. So we actually try and break them out. And then luckily, it's like the Irish flag. And we break them out by green, white, and orange, or green, white, and orange, and treat them for what they are, which is individuals in groups. Because we are working on trends when we're working with analytics. So here's a simple thing you could do, dividing by device. You divide, but this is an example of dividing out by device, so tablets, mobiles, and desktop. I would actually encourage you when you're doing any segmentation, I would encourage you when you're creating any reports or customer reports or anything like that, or if you're getting an analyst to do it for you and give it to you or whatever, or your agencies, I would encourage you as much as possible to add in also columns for revenue and conversion rate and average order value. Don't get too focused on conversion rates. There's a hand up in the back. Yes? Hello? No, you're all right. There's a mic coming your way.
Does this not slightly fly in the face of what's been done on PPC, though? So now we're starting to group together tablets and desktop. So I know that you were very quick to the market and perhaps a year or two early because of usability of how people use tablets generally at home. But that kind of smacks of like hypocrisy, really?
No, it's not. But it's a very good point. From an advertising perspective, of course, you will be targeting tablets as desktops because that's the way the enhanced campaigns treat it. But beyond that, from a usability perspective, the behavior of a user on a tablet will be quite different from the behavior of a user in terms of how they can interact with the device. So it's still good for you to take a look and see about segmenting by device to see if the behavior is different. And so from improving your website perspective and the interaction with that website, while we do know that the reason tablets and desktops are kind of pushed together from an advertising perspective is because when we look at analytics and look at a lot of it, we generally find the conversion rates on tablet are almost the same as desktop. In some cases, it's actually higher. And the average order values are almost the same. And again, in some cases, it's higher. In any country where it's predominantly iPads that people are coming in, generally the average order value is actually higher. And that's because if you can afford an iPad, you know, so you can afford to spend more on site. So that's why really tablet and desktop behavior are generally boxed together. But from improving the user experience perspective, you cannot simply treat a touch screen and a device with a keyboard and all the rest as exactly the same thing. And you will want to optimize for that. But thank you. That was actually a really insightful question. Well done, that man. But when you're breaking them out, as I was saying, think in terms of average order values as well as conversion rates and, of course, your bottom line of revenue. I think Michael was talking this morning with me, Comeria. He probably told you to forget about conversion rates altogether, if you want. But really, it's all about the bottom line, the revenue thing. So I've seen a lot of retailers over the years who've tried things like introducing free shipping. And of course, users love free shipping because then they don't have to pay for it. And actually, lots of people will even choose free shipping over something like a 10 or 20% discount, even though they're probably going to get less out of it. It's just a psychological thing on free shipping. And so people go into the free shipping. But the problem with free shipping is that where before people may have had to put a certain amount of it into their basket in order to qualify for it, or they just simply put a lot into their basket in order to reduce the amount of shipping they had to pay for. When you introduce free shipping, very often what happens is people start checking out more often. Great, conversion rate's just gone skyrocketing. We are amazing. But your average order value has also dropped because they're putting less stuff into their basket at a time. And your costs have gone up because you have to pay for all of those deliveries. Even if you're offering them free for the clients, you still have to pay for all of those deliveries. So your revenue may actually have dropped even though your conversion rate has gone up quite significantly. I'm not picking on free shipping particularly, but just anything you're doing, anything you decide to test in that, make sure you look beyond conversion rates and actually look, well, what is the bottom line? Have our costs changed? If you drive 100 more leads, are you now going to have to pay 100 more people to go on the phone with those people? And if they are not great quality leads, are you now paying more money for people to go on the phone and yet getting a very low return in terms of additional value from that? So you're not just looking at your conversion rate, you're looking at the bottom line. So do try as much as possible when you're segmenting to put those things in there as well. Segment by browser. How many people here have seen their own website in Internet Explorer? I haven't actually, but how many people have seen it in Chrome? Good on you. Firefox? Opera? Well done. Norwegian? What else? Who else is out there? Safari. God, jeez, nearly forgot. Safari? Yeah. I mean, very often we don't look to see how our sites look and all. And remember, it's not just that we've got 5 different major browsers plus lots of other smaller ones, but we've got lots of different versions of them. So the experience on Internet Explorer 8 will be very different to the experience on Internet Explorer 10. Chrome kind of tends to update itself very often, so you get basically 6-week cycles of something working really well or not. And Firefox, you've got all the different versions. Safari, you'll be very quickly able to see that some versions are more aimed at touchscreens and others are more aimed at the Macs or whatever. But you should really be looking at all of those and maybe even segmenting your users by the browsers that they use, because the behaviors associated with having the different types of browsers could well be slightly different. Chrome people are probably cool and up-to-date modern people who move with the flow. And so they're maybe the kind of customers who are more likely to be comfortable purchasing things online and that kind of thing, say. Safari are likely to be people who've got cash. They can afford Apple's expensive products, but that's because they're so brilliant. In case this gets recorded and published, whatever. But that there will be different. I think it's Orbitz in the US who they did a segment by browsers and by devices where they recognized that people who came in on iOS products and Apple basically operating system products tended to want to book hotels and hotel rooms that were more expensive because they had more money. And people who came in on Android, who are poor, they didn't want to buy such expensive things. And so they wanted the cheaper things than that. So they actually used those segments so that when people performed a search, as they were looking for things, it also checked to see what their operating system was, and then delivered the results based on the operating system. So that people who came in on a Mac were delivered the expensive hotel rooms in the expensive hotels first, and people who came in on Android or Internet Explorer or whatever, they were then delivered to the cheaper things because they were more likely to be price-oriented, whereas the Apple guys were more likely to be luxury-oriented. They didn't give them different prices. I'm not talking about price changing. They didn't give them different prices. We're not all British Airways. They didn't give them different prices. What they did instead was they actually gave them just the things that they felt those people would more likely to want, and so they would more quickly get to what they want, and then they would more likely convert. Cool. So that's, you can segment by those. But even regardless of whether you segment by those things, do make sure that your site looks great in all of the different browsers. So a credit card company in the UK last year, I won't say who, but it was a credit card company in the UK, and everything, of course, had been built for Internet Explorer because everyone knows that everybody uses Internet Explorer. And they did, probably when they built that site, believe me. But people have changed their habits. At this stage, we were able to tell them by looking at their data that actually about 30-odd% of their traffic was coming in on Chrome. And when you opened up their site in Chrome, all the pictures of their credit cards were sitting on top of the text that described them. And they could not, for the life of them, understand why those people weren't converting. So make sure you understand how your site looks and all of them, but also allow for the fact that there may even be different behaviors. And similarly, older versions of browsers will behave differently to more modern versions because they're probably older people or whatever who don't realize to update or don't really know how to. Or even if you get to things like Internet Explorer 7 or Internet Explorer 6, a few squeamish kind of God, don't point at us, you're probably looking at people in companies who have got really tightly controlled intranets, and the guys in IT have far more important things to be doing than letting people use the internet properly. And so what you get is you're probably, if you're seeing my conversion rates seem very low on IE7, IE6, it could be because your site really doesn't work in that. But it can also be because the people who are coming into your site are coming in at lunchtime when they're not supposed to be maybe, or they're in work or whatever, and then they go home in the evening and they buy on Chrome. That can also be. So understanding different behaviors of different users from segments, but things like browsers. Of course, you can also segment for your enhanced campaigns. And in fact, you can even get within your analytics now reports that will help you to segment by these things. So again, looking at things like segmenting by location or the device, as we said already, the time of the day, segment by these things, and it can really help you with producing more targeted advertising at the right time to the right people who are motivated by the right things. That's what we want to do. This is the new, I don't know if you've all, do some of you, have any of you ever been in analytics even? Has anyone here ever been in analytics? Yeah? Okay. So that's good. That's encouraging. So this is the new way that we're going to be we're doing segments, and we've been rolling it out. Not everyone has it yet, so some of you may still be seeing the old-fashioned way. But it'll be a much more intuitive way of creating segments to make it easier for you and create your own ones, use better default ones. You will be able to segment by behaviors, and even by e-commerce, like things like revenue. You'll actually be able to say, I only want to have in this segment users who spent more than this amount of money in the last whatever number of days, having visited the site X number of times. I want to see the data for them. Rich. Very, very rich data there. Any questions about divide and deduce? Question? Yes. Somebody with a mic, somebody with a mic. Up the back, lady, blonde hair. Yes, hi. Get some water while you're thinking.
Segment that you've just shown was the happy users. How would you define them?
I don't know. How do you define happy users?
Ones that leave customer
I mean, that's a default. That's it. What that is a customer segment. Yeah, we're a custom segment. Sorry, where somebody has decided to call that segment happy users. It could just be users who come back a lot and keep buying from us. And they must be very happy users because they keep buying from us, and we're happy that they're happy. So we call them the happy users. And you'll create, when you create your custom segments, of course, you will put a name on them. Ideally, one that is obvious to anybody. And also maybe even describes to some extent what it was that you were trying to do with the segment. So, yeah. Oh, another question? Yes? On a roll.
On the back of it. If it was based on customer reviews, how would you link those numbers of users to the analytics then?
I guess it would depend on the way you collect your reviews. So if, for example, you have people who, if you have a way of sending out reviews, like having a place on your site where you encourage people to write reviews, you may want, say, to set it up so that anyone who uses 3 stars or more in the review, we're gonna target them as happy users. Or whatever. So it just depends on the signals that you have available in the site setup to enable you to actually track those things. But if you go back to your developers and say that to them, maybe they can come up with an idea that's unique to your website. Can't go more than that. Any other questions on that? Was that helpful? Did that answer? Yeah? Okay. Hi. Yes. Come on, use the mic. It's for the recording. It's not for us.
In a world of sort of limited time and limited resources,
yeah,
where are the sort of the best first places to start?
Okay, well, the obvious first thing to do, if you don't have much resource, is to just focus on auditing your analytics and making sure that it is actually set up correctly. That would be the absolute basic thing. If you don't have a well set up analytics tracking, then there is so much less things that you can do with the data. So that would be the first thing. If you don't know how to do that yourself, there are plenty of companies out there who will happily charge you money to do it for you. And if you're using Google Analytics, then we have Google Analytics certified partners who we could actually give you a link if you want, for where you can look those up, and they've been tested on their ability to do that with Google Analytics, and they will charge you for it. But ask a few of them. Put out a few bids, see who gives you the best reviews on that. Apart from that, segmenting-wise, it really comes down to what it is that the people that you're really interested in, what it is that you want. Simple things that I like looking at segment-wise is obviously things like I look by devices to make sure that I'm not treating all users as the same in terms of devices, because the behavior is particularly on mobile versus the desktop tablet thing will be very, very different. So I'd definitely be segmenting out by device. Other things I'd be segmenting out by, I would generally look at things like count of days, so how many days it has been since people are here. But I'm going to show you, I'm going to go through some other segments in a bit, because I'm going to talk a bit about targeting and converting. So we'll go through a few segments there, and hopefully after that you will feel compelled to the ones that you think are best for you. Does that help? It was a really nice kind of avoiding the answer kind of answer, wasn't it? Hopefully I'll be a bit more specific for you later. So, okay, attribute and test. So attribution, it's very important that you be doing some kind of attribution modeling to understand, are you really investing the right funds into the right parts of your overall online marketing package? You can do that with the attribution modeling tool if you have Google Analytics. Sorry if you don't. It's the advantages of Google Analytics. But there are, I'm sure, other people out there who would claim that they can do things too, and maybe they can. But attribution modeling is something that you can do as a built-in element of using multi-channel funnels and that, and attributing within Google Analytics. And of course, it's not just for your Google advertising; it's for all of your online advertising that you're tracking and bringing into your analytics package. A very simple thing: short sales cycles, retail. You probably want to use a decay model. Because you expect things to do things rather quickly, the decay model simply means that as time goes by, you give less and less value to the first things that happened, and give most of your value to the last thing. I'm not going to go into too much detail on this because it's a complex enough topic. If you would like to go into greater detail on attribution, if you really are keen to learn more about it, say it to your sales teams, and they can see if there's a way they can maybe do an attribution workshop with you. Other, just skimming over it then, if you're doing longer sales cycles, then you'll probably want to go with this equal distribution model because, for example, you sell washing machines or some other kind of consideration item that requires a lot of time to make a decision on making a purchase on. And so probably what you're doing with your advertising is you're trying to maintain interest and you're trying to maintain your foot in the door of that user's interest. So you're now giving them kind of even attribution for things. So the direct, when they finally come in and they make the purchase, rather than giving all the value to that, the chances are, if they spent months looking at this, that they've also maybe received an email about 2 or 3 months ago, and then they maybe went in and they clicked on an ad, and then they did an organic search, and then they finally came in and direct. But all of these things will have contributed to that decision model, and they should be given the same weighting in terms of value. And then what you do is you actually do analysis of all these different models and work for yourself. I can't tell you which model is best for you. These are just some samples of things that you can think about. Or maybe use multiple models and do a bit of weighted testing. But then actually do testing off the back of it. Test, if it says things like your referrals are significantly undervalued, then test putting more into driving more referrals. If it says that direct traffic is severely overvalued, maybe you shouldn't be spending as much on trying to get people to do direct traffic. Or similarly, if it says that display is severely overvalued, maybe you should be knocking down the amount of money you're spending on display. But you probably shouldn't, because display is brilliant, so you probably should be spending more. But this is just an example. Okay, finally, any questions on attribution? Probably loads, actually. Yes?
I didn't really understand the numbers there, up and down.
Numbers. Oh, here. Yeah, so what this is about is when you do your attribution modeling, it will tell you things like referrals are being significantly undervalued, in that they're probably worth about 9.4% more than you're giving them value for at the moment. But your direct traffic, of course, you're going, oh, sure, it's all about the direct traffic. People come straight in, they put my URL in, and they make a purchase because my URL really works. But actually, it's because they've already been to your site, and that's how they know your URL. And that's why your URL really works. That's why them coming in direct really, really works. Very often, from your advertising perspective, your brand keywords look brilliant. God, we should only use our brand keywords. And then, for some reason, your traffic starts to dwindle. I actually met a company in Belgium in December, and they did this. They turned off all their generics because they got a new boss or something who said, generics don't work. And they turned them all off. And then I met the boss about 4 or 5 months later and said, yeah, we turned it all back on again when we were getting nobody coming to the site. Because once they bought the thing that they came to the site to do, their sale value was not great, and they'd lost putting lots of people into the funnel. So it's just about, you may find when you do this, by the way, that the generics aren't as valuable to you, or that the brand actually has been undervalued or whatever. So, there's different things can happen. But do take a look at it and make sure that you're really giving the right value and the right credit to the different things that people are doing in order as a means of coming to you. Target and convert. Time. Okay, use Google Analytics remarketing. For those of you who have Google Analytics, if you don't, you can leave. If you've got Google Analytics, use Google Analytics remarketing. If you don't have Google Analytics, by the way, and you would like to, it's free, so you can always put it on as your second. And that's actually a lot of companies that I see now have got, say, the big one they're paying for, and then they put Google Analytics on as well as a second set of tracking because they want some of the features that are available to it, and it's free anyway. So that's what some of them do. But you don't have to do. But using Google Analytics remarketing really ties in with your advertising. How many people are doing Google Analytics remarketing here? Well done, that small, heroic few. The rest of you, shame on you. You should be. And the reason is, you can reuse your Google Analytics tag. So it's not like you're going to have to do an awful lot of tagging things and that. You're going to do a little bit. You're going to do a little bit. And I'll get to that in a second. In fact, I'll skim over it because you're not the right audience. And you can leverage your Google Analytics data. So you can actually, you were talking earlier about bringing all those things in, but you can actually use them from within Analytics. And then it just sends a message over to AdWords for you to set up your remarketing lists. And you can build and edit these lists very easily. And, of course, you can create sophisticated lists. Now, and I'm going to go through some of those now very quickly because we don't have a lot of time. But this, by the way, is the bit I'm not going to show you because you're all going, nah! So that's just what you have to do to your tag. You can bring that back to your developers. And it's even simpler to do that if you've got Tag Manager because it's actually set up to do that, or any tag management system, as I said at the start. You see, we're coming full circle here. Okay, these are some of examples of the segments that you can actually do when you're using Google Analytics remarketing. So imagine you can target people by the way they behave on your site. So instead of just targeting because they came to your site, or just targeting because they came to a certain page on your site, like ordinary marketing does, you can actually target them based by what they did when they were on your site. The pages, maybe multiple pages that they visited, or maybe there's a particular page in your site that you feel that when people see that page, they're much more likely to convert. And so you really want to target the people who visited that page with a particular message, or whatever. So you can actually target people by the way they behaved on your site. You can target them by their location. I saw a company in Manchester in the UK. I'm sorry if there's a lot of UK-focused stuff, guys, but I just see more of them. But I do see all of Northern Europe. This particular crowd, they were in Manchester, and they had shops. You know, they sold a particular product, and they had shops that helped people to use this product. And we very quickly can see, I mean, I was able to go into the meeting without talking to them about their shops or going and looking at their site or not. I could tell them exactly where all of their shops were, because literally I could see from the advertising behavior and its effectiveness where people were. So you could literally create segments for things like, I actually only want to remarket to people in Birmingham because I have a store there, and there's no point in remarketing people in London because I don't have a store there. And so those people are not going to go all the way to Birmingham to buy something from me. So I'm only going to retarget people who are based in Birmingham or in Moscow. Trying to go international here, or Paris, or whatever. You know, I only know capital cities, sorry. But I only want to target people from specific locations, or towns, or whatever. You know, that I want to remarket specifically to particular areas where I know that I'm likely to convert better. So I'm spending my money more effectively. Abandoned shopping baskets. We know you put stuff in your basket, and now I want to go back to you and send you with a message that says, but what you can also do is, this is obviously quite a basic thing, you can also add to this, into your segments, things like time since added things to the baskets. Because at the moment, when you do remarketing, you hit a person with a message, I get it all the time because I look at people's websites. And so I go and I look at a site for a travel company that targets people who are going to Barcelona, and then for weeks, I'm getting hit with this ad saying, you know, don't forget about Barcelona. And us, please, too. And you know, but you can actually change those messages, because maybe people who are here in the last 24 hours, you might want to target with a, hey, why don't you go back to Barcelona? Barcelona's great, kind of thing. But maybe people who haven't been here for a week, you might want to reintroduce yourself to them because they've probably completely forgotten who you are and what you do, whatever. So you can actually change the messages based on the time frames between when people came into your site and when they see your ads and that. Recent or frequent visitors. I just explained it. High-value customers. This is great. I'm only interested in retargeting to customers who we know spend lots of money, because they're more valuable. And so if I target those customers, then we know that the return on investment will be much higher. So I only want to target people who spent more than a certain money. I don't want to retarget to people who came in and bought a pen. The post cost more than what we sold them. I want to retarget people who spent you know, over a certain amount of money or whatever. By engagement, what they actually did. Referral sources, where they came from. I only want to target people who came to my site from this location. I know that people who come in from this particular blog tend to be really, really interested in what it is that I'm selling, and they tend to convert really, really well. So I want to target people who came in from that blog, again, because I'm pretty sure that those people are much more engaged than people who came in from other places. Yeah? Sequence of visits, you know, the ways they've come in, the number of times they've come in, the things they've done when they came in those different ways, the different things they've tried to do in all those great conversion things that you were tracking with values. Or upsells and cross-sells. We know we've sold something to them, but now we would like to sell them something else that would go with that. And so we want to target them for that. Or we want to target them for something completely new that we think they might be interested in based on what they've already bought before. This is the kind of behavioral-based segmenting and targeting that you can do with remarketing. So cool. Why are you not all doing it? Any questions? Of course you're not doing it if you don't have Google Analytics. Yes. Yes.
Can you remarket to people on a specific browser in analytics remarketing?
Of course. Yeah.
Okay.
If you can get the data in Google Analytics, then you can target people to that data. You can create a segment for it, and then what happens is you create the segment, and then you push that segment, comes over to AdWords, and then you can remarket to that segment. Yes, up the back. Oh, lots of questions. Oh, sorry, David, you'll have to wait.
Hey, how's it going? Just wondering, With Google encrypting more of the search information due to privacy concerns and that, is going to be a big rise in the not-provided keyword in Google Analytics. I was wondering, is that data going to remain available in places like Webmaster Tools and that?
So in Webmaster Tools, you will continue to be able to see the top 5,000 terms that were used to access your site. You will continue to be able to see, although it'll say not provided in Google Analytics, you will continue to see that aggregated data and what went on to actually convert. So yes, you will still be able to see that things. And there are reports within AdWords that you can access as well that will help you to see those terms too.
Right, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes. Oh, God, more. Yes.
Hi. Can we retarget tablet users?
Can we retarget tablet users?
Yeah.
Why not? Yeah. I mean, if you can measure it, you can retarget it. If you can segment it, you can retarget it. Yeah, absolutely. I only want to retarget the people who came to my site on tablets. I only want to retarget the people who came to my site on iPads because they've got money. Yeah. Anyone else? Yes?
Can you give us some more information about universal analytics?
No. No, because we don't have time. I'm actually down to 26 seconds. I made a deliberate decision to not talk about that today, simply because it's what everyone's talking about all the time, and I wanted to try and give you something that's useful. I guess universal analytics, it's not rolled out here yet completely, but when it is, I guess it's going to make your segmenting even more powerful, because you're going to be able to actually bring in offline activity. You're going to be able to bring in all the different ways that you interact with users. But it will only be able to do the identification and tying all of those things together where it actually has information, where you have information about a user or whatever, which means basically from an online perspective, they will need to be logged in some way for you to be able to identify. Does that help you? Yes. Good. Yes, more. Hi.
Could you, touching on the not provided point before, would you mind just confirming why, so from natural search, dead, PPC still can get keyword level data. The argument over kind of privacy doesn't seem to stack up from natural to paid. Would you mind just giving Google's kind of answer?
Sure, I can give you Google's exact answer. 1 second, I'm going to start sounding like a compliant, legally touched upon guy now. Google respects the privacy of its users, and as a result, that's it really. It is down to privacy, and we are actually assessing the advertising side, but I imagine you don't want us to do that. So we are obviously always looking at it from a privacy perspective. Yes. We have made the decision on the organic, and that is rolling out to increasingly be not provided. You will still probably get some terms that will come through, and that will only be where people are maybe using devices or networks that don't support secure SSL. Yeah, I mean, the jury's out now. We're looking at it. But obviously, we want as much as possible to give you rich data to help you to improve your advertising. But yeah, privacy is increasingly something we have to look at, and so we will continue to look at it always. I know it's not really an answer, but I can't actually give you one. So that's as best as I've got. I knew that question was going to come up. Anything else? Okay, well, look, thank you so much for being such a good audience. And please do all the things I said to you, maybe apart from restructuring your URLs, unless you don't, because that could be quite a lot of work. Really, really, really track things, really, really put values on things, segment people, don't treat everyone the same, and then remarket to them in a way that actually gives you the best return on investment from your advertising. If you do have questions, ask your account managers. And thank you.